When Peter Lynch turns 10, his father dies from cancer.
It was a real tragedy because at the time, Lynch's father made a lot of money as an accountant that provided a very good lifestyle. Lynch's mother didn't have to work.
But now she has to go back to the workforce, taking on 2 jobs at once. And in order to support his mother, the young Peter Lynch has to grow up quickly and to start working as well.
Peter Lynch is near the top of anyone's list of great investors.
He consistently trounced the market for over a decade by observing great ideas in the world around him, then researching them, and then buying them if they could stand the test of time.
In the 13 years he ran the Fidelity Magellan Fund, he racked up annual average returns of 29.2%.
With his father gone, Peter Lynch's mother is determined to make enough money in order for Lynch to stay in a private school. She knows that is the best way to guarantee her son's future. But to make it easier for her, the 11-year-old Lynch is desperate to find a job of his own.
He never expected to work at 11 years old. He wanted to have a normal childhood. But Lynch was a very understanding boy. Seeing how hard his mother worked to provide for him, he made up his mind from an early age that he was going to make so much money when he grew up that his mother would never have to work again.
But the type of jobs for an 11-year-old is limited. He ends up becoming a caddy at a local golf club. His first job as a caddy allows Lynch to appreciate the hard work and learn social skills. But more importantly, it is there he meets his mentor that will completely change his life forever. To help support her mother, Peter Lynch becomes the hardest working caddy on the golf course. There, he meets the executive vice president of Fidelity, George Sullivan.
Peter Lynch stood up from the crowd because of his work ethic. But what really left an impression on George Sullivan was that one time Sullivan misplaced his umbrella, and Lynch used his own money, as little as it was, to buy a new umbrella to give it to Sullivan. And that act of kindness by Peter Lynch really left an impression on Sullivan. Peter Lynch's excellent work on the golf course pays off. And with Sullivan's recommendation, Lynch gets accepted to Boston College and receives full scholarship from a caddy scholarship fund. The career as a caddy has another benefit to Lynch. He develops a passion for finance, especially for stock picking.
The golf course was the next best thing to being on the floor of a major exchange. After my clients sliced the drive, they would enthusiastically describe their latest investment. The happy stories I heard on the fairways made me rethink the family position that the stock market was a place to lose money. Many of my clients seem to be making money in the stock market.
He realizes to become as wealthy as those people he met on the golf course, he should get into stocks. At Boston University, Lynch decides to become a finance major. But he soon comes to realize that academic finance is not the same subject as he learned about on the golf course.
Investing in stocks is an art, not a science. People trained to rigidly quantify everything are at a disadvantage.
In college, Peter Lynch finds out that the most helpful subject to learn about stocks is not economics or mathematics, but philosophy, especially logic.
I was on the liberal arts side of Boston College, avoiding all the required math and accounting courses, the normal preparations for business. Instead, I studied metaphysics, logic, and philosophy, along with history, psychology, and political science.
They're called humanities because they're all about people. And finance, to Peter Lynch, is all about people.
At Boston College, Lynch scores perfectly in tests. But he knows the true way to examine his knowledge is not by passing his exams, but by investing in the real world. Founded in 1945, Flying Tigers was the first cargo airline in the United States. In 1961, it became one of the first carriers in the world to offer aerial pallet shipping service. Before then, aerial commercial shipping was expensive and nearly non-existent for larger goods.
Flying Tigers would be considered a growth stock because it was a new and small company. But Lynch saw that the whole aerial shipping industry was going to explode, and Flying Tigers was going to be the leader of it.
With strong conviction, Peter Lynch put majority of savings in Flying Tiger stock. But for the next 3 years, the stock becomes stagnated. It never goes beyond the original price of $7 Lynch bought it at. If Peter Lynch learns anything from his career on the golf course, it is that it takes patience to win. But Lynch has no idea what is about to happen.
The United States is therefore prepared to take all necessary steps, including the use of armed forces, to assist any member of the Southeast Asia Collective Treaty in defense of freedom.
The Vietnam War unexpectedly becomes the best thing that's ever happened to Flying Tigers.
Initially, Lynch thought that Flying Tigers business would grow as a result of tapping into the commercial shipping business. But the Vietnam War happened so unexpectedly, and it sent the stock price to the sky.
By 1965, Peter Lynch's original $1,250 investment becomes more than $6,000, more than enough to pay for his grad school at Wharton. While pursuing his MBA, Lynch continues to disregard economics and finance classes that are out of touch with reality. He devotes all of his free time researching the next stock to buy. And after graduation from Wharton, he's eager to get into the real world. But fate intervenes. By the time Peter Lynch graduates from Wharton, the Vietnam War has reached the critical stage. It turns from a special military operation to a full-blown invasion. The US now needs to recruit more soldiers to send to the battlefield. Peter Lynch is one of them. But fortunately for Lynch, he's stationed far from the battleground, all the way in South Korea. And he spends a large part of his time researching his next investment idea. It won't be easy, as he is far away from any companies in the US. But he believes he could replicate his success with Flying Tigers. He just needs to find another small growth company that no one on Wall Street knows about. A 10-bagger.
A 10-bagger is a stock in which you've made 10 times your money. I suspect this technical term has been borrowed from baseball, which goes up to a 4-bagger or a home run. In my business, a 4-bagger is nice, but a 10-bagger is a whole lot better.
And with persistent effort, Peter Lynch finds a perfect stock to buy. Sugar beets and sugar canes are the main plants used to produce sugar. But unlike sugar canes, sugar beets can grow better in a cooler environment, such as the state of Maine. The Maine Sugar Industries is a refiner of sugar beets. In 1965, the company finds a genius solution for increasing production. It realizes that since there's a very little overlap between the harvest time of potatoes and sugar beets, it will be profitable to convince the potato farmers to grow sugar beets as well. Lynch understands clearly that this is a 10-bagger situation, mostly because no Wall Street firms have yet taken notice. He immediately buys as many shares as he can by calling his brokers from South Korea, expecting to have a windfall once he goes back to America.
Farmers in general tend to be very risk-averse, and the main sugar company couldn't convince the farmers to plant sugar beets in full capacity. Instead, most of them only use less than 1/4 of their farms.
After coming home from Korea, Lynch vows to never make the same mistake in the future. He will never buy stock again without research and, more importantly, on-site investigation.
If you're working hard, you're always checking with competitors, you're checking with customers, suppliers. You're trying to do work to find out, is this company still early? Do they have years and years of growth ahead of them? Then you stay with it, no matter the stock goes down.
But in the meantime, he needs to make a living. In 1969, through his connection with George Sullivan, he becomes a research analyst at Fidelity, then the largest asset management company in America.